First off, Jesus was crucified at a place called Golgotha, meaning the place of the skull. This is also known as Mount Calvary, which is the equivalent word in Latin, which also means skull or place of the skull. Golgotha was a place that was located outside the city walls in Jerusalem, and historians have differences of opinions as to exactly where it was located. However, one consensus is that it is a roadway into Jerusalem. Not as some of the portraits that we see of Mount Calvary, on a hill far away stood a old rugged cross, and this cross is way out in the countryside somewhere. That's not the case, because see, in verse 39 we read, just to get a little insight, those who passed by hurled insults at him, indicating that this is a roadway or this is a walkway into the city. Now, there was a purpose, church. Listen, there was a purpose for the Romans to crucify people along the roadway. Let me give you a little history lesson here, okay? Because we see this in history with Spartacus. He launched his attack against Rome in 71 BC, before Christ, and they were utterly defeated. The 6,000 survivors of that war were crucified by the Romans on crosses along the Appian Way, which was the major roadway to Rome. So could you imagine, traveling down a road, walking or on your donkey, on your horse, with 6,000 crosses along the roadway on either side of the road with men hanging on them? Could you imagine the message that sent? So it was common for the Roman Empire to line the roadways into their controlled cities with crosses to make the message clear that this is how we deal with anyone who rises up against Rome. It was a major deterrent of crime. It was a major deterrent of rebellion against the Roman Empire. So when Jesus came along, listen, church, the Romans were experts in crucifying people. Now let's understand, the idea of crucifixion was not to kill somebody quickly. If you want to kill somebody quickly, they could have just ran a sword through him. Come on, somebody. It wouldn't take very long. But rather, the idea of crucifying somebody was to see how long they could keep you alive on this cross. That was the purpose. And studies show that it would take, on average, about 48 hours or 2 days before somebody would die on the cross. Listen, the Romans were sadists. They were brutal. These are the same people, listen, church, who fed the Christians to lions for entertainment. Does somebody hear what I'm saying here this morning? They were the same people who hung Christians on poles after they were doused in oil and lit them on fire just to illuminate their gardens in the evening. Come on, somebody. But how many of you know the Word of God declares that Jesus came at the exact time, at the perfect time to save humanity? Jesus would have to go through this death on the cross, this brutal, sadistic way of killing somebody. So what causes death on the cross? It's caused by suffocation. When they hang you on the cross, the way that it works is they would get the cross, they would lay it down, they would tie you to it, they would run the nails through your wrist here, they would rope you on it, they would run the nails through your feet. But see, in Jesus' case, listen somebody, before he even got to that point, he was whooped 39 times with a cattail, with metal beads on the end, shedding his skin, shredding his skin, that he was not even recognizable by the folks who knew him. Is somebody hearing what I'm saying this morning? He was put on that cross naked. There was no loincloth on him. Utter shame. I'm trying to tell somebody, this is what Jesus did for you. This is what Jesus did for me. After he was beaten, after he was stretched out, after they pounded a crown of thorns on his head, they would take the cross and there would be a hole dug in the ground, and as he laid on the cross, they would pick it up and they would thrust the cross into the hole, and all your weight would come down and your body would just shudder in extreme pain. That was just the beginning. But Jesus hung on that cross, and the way you die from crucifixion is you're tied up, but all your body sags and you can't breathe. You begin to gasp for air. But everybody has an instinct for survival, to live. So everything within you would lift yourself up just to get a breath. And then you would cramp and back down. Hour after hour after hour. And in most cases, 2 days of agony. But Jesus hung on this cross. Listen to me, somebody. When the Romans put somebody on a cross, nobody survived. Nobody survived. So after 6 hours on the cross, even after all that, they came to him. They put a spear through his heart. So when Jesus called out in his last statements, "It is finished, and Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit, O God." Listen to me, church, listen. Because most people who died on a cross died in a whimper. You could not even hear them from right below them. You couldn't even hear them. Everything was sucked out of them. But Jesus Christ said to Telestai, "It's finished. Father, I'm giving you my spirit." Listen, they weren't statements of defeat, but rather they were statements of victory. They were declarations of triumph over sin. It was a declaration over a triumph over death. Come on, somebody, put your hands together in this house.
To every nation, to every generation, to all creation, to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ. To every nation, every generation, to all creation, to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ.